Hello everyone. Just wanted to make sure you knew that I was being COVID-19 safe. Shout out to Sister Boyer for making masks for our family, and also to Sister Johnson for the Dallas Cowboys mask. Wanted to take a few moments and share with you today. I'm coming to you from my second most favorite place in the world. My first most favorite place is my home. Not necessarily the house, but the home, because I've lived in a number of houses, and we've been in a new house for the last couple of years. But it's my family that makes the home. But my second most favorite place in the whole world is this building behind me. And I am extremely thankful for what it has meant to my life, the significant things that have happened here. So that's not really what I'm here to talk to you about today, but I did want to just let you know where I was and why I was there. I actually want to follow up from last night's message. Didn't really intend to do this per se, but just had at least another thought that I did not share last night, and I wanted to share. I've learned through the years, I first started learning this lesson when I was the principal of Antioch Christian School, and I would have to try to deal with two kids that were involved in some kind of situation, a fight or some kind of an issue. And without fail, I would get two different stories from the individuals involved. And somewhere in there would be some elements of that story that were similar, but rarely did each side tell the same story. And so I started learning in those days that you can't believe everything necessarily. You can't believe the whole story from one person. And one of the problems going back to last night and Whisperers and Talebearers is we usually get one side of the story, and we tell the story based on the one side of the story. I've also learned since my days as principal of Antioch Christian School that other situations and very serious situations that I've dealt with, I've learned not to just automatically jump to conclusions and believe one side of the story. I have found more often than not that there is truth somewhere in the middle. And so the other challenge is whether we purposefully do it or not, and I have tried my best, and I'm sure that I have not fully succeeded. But when we tell something, when we tell a story, we always have a filter. We hear and we speak with filters. And even as hard as we try not to do that, we have filters. I've had a few times where I've been in a situation where I've heard somebody say something, and then I've heard somebody else that was in that room or in that situation that heard the same thing I heard, and they walk away with a very negative perspective on what that person said. And I felt like I heard something completely different than that. And probably even in this case, the truth was somewhere in the middle. But again, we have filters. Our life experiences, our circumstances, our circle of influence influences the way we hear as well as the way that we speak. And so I just wanted to follow up and challenge you today, and maybe I'll summarize it in 2 points. And that is, you usually aren't getting the whole story from one side of the story. And so that's another reason why it's really not fair to go telling and talking about things when you've only heard one side. There have actually been some times where the first side of the story I heard was extremely troubling and concerning, And I was very worried about what was going to take place. But then as time went on and everything began to unfold, I found out that wasn't exactly accurate, what I got at first. And I'm thankful that I think most of the time I have succeeded at not jumping to conclusions and acting on those conclusions. So I want to challenge you with that. And I also want to challenge you again with the idea that whether you are aware or not, and usually we're not really aware, but we've got filters. We hear and we speak with the filters that affect us. It goes back to what I've said many times is part of the danger or the negative side of so much written communication, whether that's emails or text messages. The reader is the one that really determines the tone. You hear in your head the voice inflection of what you are reading. You hear the voice of the person if you know them well. You hear their voice, you hear the inflection of their voice, and so you decide the tone of what you're hearing. So I want to challenge you with a follow-up from last night to those two things. Again, the verse that I started with last night is that God hates those who sow discord. And I know, at least I believe, there are people that are they're whisperers and talebearers, and they know that they are whisperers and talebearers. But I think there's also some people that sort of in naivety, you're not necessarily trying to spread gossip or rumors. You've just gotten a little bit too comfortable with what comes out of your mouth. And even those that may be in that category, you still are influenced by your perspective, by your filters. And you also must remember that there's more than one side to any given story. So I know this isn't necessarily encouraging and uplifting today, more so I guess a challenge. But as strongly as I felt what I taught last night, I felt to follow up with that. So I hope and pray you will take this to heart. And as I said last night, that you'll spend some time reflecting and allowing the Spirit of the Lord to search you and if need be, bring some things to the surface that maybe you need to adjust in this area. David said, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight." And in the context of this, the first part of that verse, I think, is something that should be our prayer. Lord, let what comes out of my mouth, let it be acceptable in your sight. Thanks for taking time again to listen, to watch. I hope and pray that there's something of value that God will do in your life through this.